Bismillah. So, do any of you know about Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint? Have any of you had prior experience with those tools? Remember, you can type out your answers in the comment section. Like so. Okay? So, have any of you had prior experience with those tools? Alright, so some of you have, at least. Okay. So, what do you know about Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint? You're free to use your microphones if you can. So, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and Microsoft PowerPoint are just three programs in what is called Microsoft Office. Microsoft Office contains a multitude of tools like this one here, Outlook, like for example OneNote, like Access here. It's just supposed to make uh, working with documents easier. Okay, so let's take our first example, Microsoft Word, which is a program to write documents. You could say memoirs, letters, journals, anything of the sort. You can write it using Microsoft Word. Now, Microsoft Word, uh, which is this program here, we can launch it by double clicking on the shortcut here on the desktop. This is Microsoft Word, and we can also search for it in the Windows Explorer menu. For example, here we have Word, and as you can see here in this page, we have a multitude of options. We can go to the Home tab, or we can start with a new document here. We can also start a new document with a new document here, or we can open an existing document by going to this Open tab here. We can also view our recently opened documents. For example, if you were working on a document recently and you closed it, you don't have to locate the document again. You can simply open Microsoft Word and choose the document or select the document from the recently accessed documents here. Okay? You can also make a list of documents that are your favorites or that you work on the most. For example, let's try to open a document from this PC. Here you can go to the Recent tab here, or select a folder from these recently accessed folders, or you can simply browse. When you click on browse, you are free to search any place in your PC to locate the document you want to open. For example, we opened this document here. Okay, we can also start with a blank document like so, and it takes us to the first screen. We can see now, like you can see here, we have different tabs. Here we have the File tab, the Home tab, which is the default tab, the Insert tab, the Draw tab, the Design tab, the Layout tab, the References tab, the Mailing, Review, View, Help, and Acrobat, okay, to create PDFs. This is a recently added tab. It wasn't available in the previous Microsoft Word versions. They added it, I think, in 2019 or 2021 version. Okay, so every 3 years there's a new version of Microsoft Office tools. We have Word, Excel, PowerPoint of 2007, then the 2010, then 2013, 2016, 2019, and this version here is the 2021 version. Okay. Do you have any questions thus far, or can I continue? Any questions? Okay. So, continuing, in the Home tab, we can start writing the document. Here you see the blinking cursor here. For example, just a moment. Here we have some simple text. For example, let's make a typo. Let's make For example, notice this happy text is underlined in red. Why? Because simply it's missing a P. If we right click on this text, it gives us suggestions of what it thinks we mean by the word. Okay? Here we have happy, which is the correct way to write the word. Okay? Happy to be here, for example, dot. Now, text in Microsoft Word, this is simple text, okay? The size of the font or the text size is 12, okay? 12 points. Now, for example, if I want to increase the size of this text right here, what I have to do is to select the text first. And how can I select this text? I can simply go to the end of what I'm trying to select, or the beginning, doesn't really matter, and then I click and drag the mouse cursor over. Okay, once I've selected all the text, then I can go to the text size tab and select the appropriate size here. Okay, notice I haven't selected the size yet, but it gives me a preview of what the text will look like if I select that size. Okay, so I can simply, just a moment. So as I was saying, I can simply select the text and then select the appropriate size from here, or simply increase the size with this increase font size button right here, or decrease it by clicking on this button right here. Let's make it a bit bigger for you to see. Now, the size is not the only thing we can change. We can also change the way the text appears on the screen. For example, let's change the font type. Notice it gives you a preview of what the text will look like, so you can make the appropriate choice. We have many options to choose from. The font size, okay, the font type and the font size. Let's also search for the appropriate type. Notice I typed in T and it took me to the Times New Roman. Let's go with this one. Now, the font type isn't also the only thing we can change here. We can even text highlight color, change the highlight color. Let's go with no color, for example. Suppose maybe you've done some changes that you want to undo. What you can do is click on this arrow right here, undo highlights, for example. Notice any option, if you want to know what anything does here, you simply hover over it, okay? For example, here it gives us a hint. Font, pick a new font for your text. For example, it gives you an exact description of what it does. Here, change the size of your text, text effects and typography. Add some flair to your text by applying a text effect such as shadow or glow. You can also change the typography settings to enable ligatures or choose a stylistic set. Okay. Notice it gives you an exact explanation of what it does. Okay. One moment. Whenever you have questions, feel free to ask, okay? Now, for example, if I'm not selecting any text and I change everything, for example, let's make the text bigger and let's choose another font. For example, let's choose Algerian. What do you notice? Now, the changes only applied on the text I started writing before I selected the changes I want to make. Who can tell me why is that? Can you guess why the changes only applied to the text I've written after I made the changes? Any ideas? Nobody knows. So, as I said earlier, for example, if I wanted to, for example, write some new text, for example, this applied the font I've already chosen, okay? Now, whenever I choose a new font, for example, let's go with this one. Notice the or not part, the second part, is written in the new font, but the old one is still in the old font. Why? Because whenever you change the size or for example, the font type, like here, the changes only apply to what you write after you made the changes. If I want to apply a single font to everything here, I have to select everything here and then select a font. For example, let's go with Times New Roman. and let's go with the size 16. Okay, notice now everything looks great because it's in the same font and the same size. Okay, do you have questions? Do you have any questions? Okay, so then let's continue. We have different stuff we can do. For example, we can choose the font color, which is the text color. For example, let's make this one red. You can choose red as a default, or you can simply go to the drop down menu and choose the appropriate one. Okay, for example. Okay, so we can also change the text positioning, align left here, like you can read this. Align left, align your content, sorry, with the left margin. Left alignment is commonly used for body text and makes the document easier to read. Okay, this is the default option. Okay, we can align the text in this to the center or align it to the right. Okay, we can also go with one of these options. Okay, so if we want to align everything, as I was saying, we have to select everything and then apply the changes. Okay, notice the entire text is aligned to the left, center, and right. Okay, for example, let's try to review some other options that we have in the Home tab. For example, list. Now, if I want to make a list, here we have the bullet style, which is an unenumerated list, a list that isn't enumerated. We can choose the default option with the dots marking the elements of the list. For example, whenever you do a line break, whenever you do a line break, it creates a new element. For example, let's do another line break. If you want to end the list, you simply click again on the bullet style. Now, if I want to change the elements here, all I have to do is select and then choose a different marker. Okay, we have different options. Now, nearly everything in this nearly everything, when you have multiple options, you will have a drop down menu to choose the appropriate marker or the appropriate choice for your document. Okay, as I was saying, for example, element 3. Just a second. Now, if we want this list, if we want another list, for example, let's end this list. For example, let's make a numbered list. For example, let's click on this one, the first element, for example, Notice whenever I do a line break, the number increases by 1. Now, third element, for example. Let's end it here. Let's click again. It goes back to regular text. Okay. So now, if we want to change this regular list to a numbered list, we simply have to click on it. Okay. Select the items you want the changes to apply to, and then select your changes like so. Okay. Same thing can be done here. We select the 3 elements and then we go to a regular list. Okay, we can even change the markers, none, for example, like here, or we can choose a different type of a marker. Okay, let's go back here. For example, if we want to emphasize text, we can select it, we can make it bold, increase the thickness of the text, we can make it italic, so it leans forward a bit. We can even underline the text. Like you saw earlier, we can highlight the text. We can change the text color itself. You can make it blue, you can make it, you can't see it here, but for example, let's go to no color for the highlights, and let's select this text and let's make it blue. Now it's obvious. Okay, do you have any questions? Any questions? Is everything clear? Okay, so continuing. Okay, so continuing with the explanation. Here we have the bold, italic, and underline stuff. We can even choose the style of the line under the text. We can even like strike through the text like so. We can write superscript or subscript for exponents, for example, and whatnot. Example. Then write th, for example. Okay, what else? We can choose from here. We can copy and paste. Here we have paste options. For example, here we can cut, for example. In order to cut or copy, you have to first have something selected, okay? So, for example, let's go with this word, list. Notice the copy options were grayed out. The copy and cut options were grayed out because I didn't have anything selected. Now, notice I can't even select them if I'm clicking on them. Now, if I first, for example, select something like this word here, we can cut it. When you say cut, it is removed from its original place, and then, for example, let's go to the center and right click. If we right click here, we can paste it. Okay, we can paste it by clicking on right clicking and then choosing a paste option. Okay, or we can simply click on paste like here. Okay, Now, if we want to go back, as I said before, we can undo the changes by clicking on this arrow right here. Now, once we clicked on it, we can go forward to redo what we just did, and we can go backwards as farther as we can. Okay, now there is a keyboard shortcut for this, which is Control plus Z. For example, if we click Control Z, we will undo the changes we made. Okay, we go back. There are certainly other keyboard shortcuts. For example, for if we click on Control A, we select everything in the document. Okay, everything is selected. If we, for example, select Control plus V, it is short for paste. Okay, Control plus C, for example, Control plus C. The difference between Control plus C and Control plus X. Control plus C is short for copy. Okay, it shows you it between parentheses. You can see copy, or in short, Control plus C. Now, copy and cut do not do the same thing. Copy just leaves the element as it is, but it takes a copy of the element. Now, if we go to another place and then paste it, notice it doesn't go away. Okay, it doesn't go away. Element 1. Okay, but for example, if we use cut, let's for example, let's say Control plus X or cut. Click on the scissors. Now the element is gone, and now if we paste, the element reappears. Okay. Now, do you understand the difference between the cut option and the copy option? Is everything clear? Okay, so moving on, we have multiple keyboard shortcuts. For example, bold is Control plus B, italic is Control plus I, and underline is Control plus U. Okay, now whenever you hover over an option like here, some of these keyboard shortcuts are well known and some of them not, but it gives you the shortcut right next to the to the description of what the element does. Okay. For example, align right is Control plus R. Align to the center is Control plus E. Okay. Numbering, for example, doesn't have a keyboard shortcut. Bullets also don't have keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so most of these do have keyboard shortcuts, and some of them don't. Okay, this is concerning the Home tab. Now, moving on to another tab. For example, let's go to the Insert tab. Here we have a multitude of options. Okay, so the main thing is pictures and shapes. They are the most used. Okay, we can even insert tables, but we'll leave that to another session. Okay, so one thing we can insert is we can insert a blank page, which directly takes us to a new page. Okay, we don't lose our old page, but it takes us to a new page. Okay, now in this new page, for example, let's go to shapes, then pictures. Okay, first starting with shapes, we have multiple shapes here. For example, we can insert a square. Now, what I did, for example, let's go back and let's redo it again. Insert, shape, and then we choose the shape, we click on the shape, and then this plus sign, in order for me to draw the shape, I have to click and then drag. I can go back to resize the shape. Once I let go of the mouse, the shape is drawn. Now, what we notice here, the shape now is selected. It gives you some shortcuts to what you can do to that shape. Okay, for example, I can grab a corner and resize the shape like so. I can even change the shape, making it more square, more of a rectangle. If you grab the corners, you can preserve the shape, but you can change the size. Okay, we can even change the color. For example, let's go to the insert tab. Example for the once we selected the shape, let's, for example, right click. We can, here we have shortcuts, we can change the style of the shape. We can, for example, make it empty, just preserve just the contouring of the shape without the color, like this. Now what this does, it gives us an empty rectangle that we can do all sorts of stuff to. For example, if we click on this rectangle, we have to first select it and then right click. Now what we can do is we can add text inside the shape. Notice the cursor now is inside the shape. For example, we can even rotate the shape by grabbing this circular icon here. And like I said before, we can resize the shape like this here. Now we can even go back. For example, let's fill the shape with a color. For example, let's go with green. For example, the text remains. You have many different options. We can even cut the shape and paste it again. Just a moment. Let's we can change the shape. Now, why it doesn't let me change the text size, because in the paste options, for example, let's go back, let's click on Control Z. In the paste options, what I have selected is paste it as a picture. And as you know, we can't modify the inside a picture. Now, if I keep the source formatting as a paste option, should be, for example, for example, Let's insert it again. Let's try this one. Let's try to paste it. Let's keep the source formatting, and now I can edit the text. Okay. But for example, if I try to use another paste option, let's do another paste option. Let's paste it as a picture. Now I can't modify the text inside because it treats it as a picture. Okay. But this one here, I can modify it every which way I want. Okay. Any questions thus far? Do you have any more questions? Everything thus far is clear. Okay. So, as I was saying, these are shapes. We have different options for them. For example, we can change the style, we can change the fill, we can change the outline. We can even combine two shapes, okay? For example, this is a shape. Let's go to the Insert tab again. Let's select another shape. For example, let's go with a downward facing arrow. Now, how you would do this is you select the first shape and then click on Control in the keyboard and wait till a small plus sign like this one appears next to the second shape. Now, you click on the second shape while still holding on the Control key, and then you right click. Now, notice these options were grayed out. Group, okay? Group, bring to the front, for example. We go with group. Let's group these two shapes. Now, they are treated as a single shape. Notice if I move the both of these shapes move simultaneously. Okay. If I want to go back, I can select the group tab like this and click on ungroup. Now every shape is treated as a separate entity. Okay. This is a way for you to make diagrams, to make some more complex shapes, for example, for your demonstration purposes. Do you have any more questions? Everything thus far is clear. Everything is clear. Okay, so we're gonna stop the recording here.